Salutations, Utopians. Hope all is well. I was doing a recap the other night on the Golden State Warriors and the Sacramento Kings, and I realized that, seeing how this might be the end of an era in Golden State, I think I should do a more complete, thorough breakdown video of that dynasty. 2015 to 22, they were utter dominance, regardless of the fashion in which they did it, which I don't agree with. Um, Never was a fan either of how they handled the Mark Jackson situation, but that's their business. I don't know the inner workings and everything. There was so much to unpack with this Warriors team. Obviously, first and foremost, the Jordan Poole era. Moving off him, getting CP3. A lot of people want to keep on making comparisons. One thing I will say, that was the right move. Once you identify that Poole is not going to be able to usher in the next era of selfless championship level basketball with the Golden State Warriors, they had to get out of that terrible 125 give or take $1 million contract that they signed him to. Got an expiring deal in CP3 that was extremely clutch by the Warriors. Now you see him playing the six-man role with the Wizards, basically proving that he can only score, not really one of those guys who can do anything else besides go get his own bucket. So they did a great job selling high. That's a real, New England Patriot buff, type of move right there, dynasty move. Um, Speaking of that, uh, you know, this team, obviously, outside the fact that they need a stretch five, they need a big man, which I don't know how they didn't address. Signing Dario Saric was never the solution, if that's what they thought. But you know, the bigger problems here lies with obviously not playing the youth, which is a Bob Myers selection. Not taking Wiseman wasn't a bad idea. Just not being patient with him was. I see why he stepped down. Obviously, when Clay didn't want to take the 2 year 48, obviously that forced him to have to say, all right, well, either I bench him and then in favor of the guys that I drafted, Moody, Kuminga, etc., or I just step down and go into TV. See that he was trending the other day. People are not really feeling him on TV. I brought that up earlier. The Washington Commanders thought it was a good idea to name him in the front office. I can't wait to see how he drafts uh, for the Commanders since they want to do that. With that being said, uh, the big elephant in the room here is one thing and one thing only, and that's Klay Thompson. And this guy is one of the fiercest on-ball defenders the game has ever seen, and he's obviously a high competitor, low maintenance guy historically. I remember he did 12 dribbles and got 60 points. That's unheard of. That's a guy, that's the ultimate bought in kind of guy, and that's why this whole season has been kind of a surprise. Furthermore, you had a guy in Andre Iguodala who I would say is 10 times better than anything Klay Thompson could ever wish he could be. And he sacrificed his at least a couple years prior to his prime being finished to come off the bench for the greater good of the team. And for some reason, Klay can't seem to wrap his mind around the same kind of concept. Uh, Him in a mentorship type of role, him in a tenacious Antetokounmpo kind of role to Giannis, but doing that for Steph, I don't understand why he couldn't do that. Life has a funny way sometimes, of giving you warning signs, and it'll start off as small. So, you lose Dante DiVincenzo. He's now been trending on Twitter. Go check me out, by the way, Global GL, the number 8 BAL underscore sports on Twitter X. DiVincenzo is trending on Twitter X because they're calling him the most improved player. Well, DiVincenzo could have been had for 4 years, 48 million, and the Warriors were so hell bent on this Klay Thompson situation and keeping the nucleus together. He ended up going to New York, and you can be okay with that because he went with his Villanova bros, and I think an element of environment is why he's so great. But he definitely was exhibiting promise when he was on the Warriors. But then you got this guy Podziemski who had to scrap his way in summer league, but not just Podziemski. Lester Q, also, who's shown sparks throughout the year, and he's had to be pulled in and out of the lineup, which is one of the worst things you can do to a young player, is pull him for no justification. even when they're doing good, they still get pulled. That's the worst thing you can do to a player's confidence. And they regularly pulled him from games just because they're trying to appease Klay. Now, though he struggled for the better part of the year, Klay Thompson uh, has been phenomenal the last couple of months as his usage rate improved. Definitely, Steve Kerr has tried to do him a solid, who's the highest paid coach in the NBA, by the way, by giving him more opportunities to exhibit his skill set. But then he goes 0 for 10 in the playoffs. And now I'm concerned that he might get Isaiah Thomas, who just now is back in the league after having one of the worst fumbles in history in terms of managing free agency, with the Boston Celtics playing through injuries, playing through the loss of his sister, God rest the dead. And then Dennis Schrader did the same thing with the Lakers. I don't want 84, I want 100 mil. You're really going to throw it all the way over 15, 16 million? They have a saying in business. When everyone is upset at the table, that's the fair business practice. And now he was turning around playing on short-term $5 million per year type deals. And Klay is online for that. And what makes it worse is Klay's best angle with the Warriors is be the mentor. And if he would just have taken, 3 years, 45 million, 3 years, 55 million, guess what? You now have the bar low. You can now be looked up to by the team. You have seniority. But if you go to free agency and for whatever reason people put more stock in that 0 for 10, and we've seen it in the professional football NFL league, where suddenly nobody has any assets to parlay with Baltimore to get Lamar Jackson, an MVP, young, under 30, who really hasn't had a consistent threat to go to in the playoffs, and the one he did made one of the greatest mistakes in the history of football, Zay Flowers, with that fumble, despite having a great playoff game. Okay? Suddenly there might be a lockout in the league that says, hey, you know what? No. I'm listening to some people talking about, the Knicks. The Knicks got more shooting guards and more guards than they know what to deal with. He'll go to the Lakers with what cap? The CBA numbers are crunching, remember? So where is the money going to come from to sign Klay Thompson if you're the Lakers? Klay Thompson's going to end up in the middle of nowhere like Utah to get the money he wants, if they even want to do that. And I'm a big fan of Utah. I watch their games a lot. But honestly, when you think about it, the Jazz are far from being ready to win. Now that they moved off Kelly Olynyk, the best thing they had going for them was that 7-foot trio that they had with Markkanen, Kessler, and Olynyk. So, I'm sad to see this happening for Klay, even though I hate the Golden State Warrior fan base, and I so am against what they did to be the dynasty they are. I'd rather lose than that felonious stuff they had going on. But ultimately, you don't ever want to see the camaraderie, the brotherhood come to an end like that. But the fact of the matter is, if you're Joe Lacob, who's been phenomenal in terms of, he gave the man 165 mil coming off an Achilles. The real dynasty is Kerr, obviously, because they don't want to move off him either, even though I'm not a huge fan of the job he did in the Olympics or this season with rotations. They had enough. Between Wiseman, between Moody, Pods, Lester Q, Kuminga, who's due for a contract extension. That's another youngster that Klay's stepping on right now, trying to get 100 mil, knowing Kuminga's got to get paid. And shout out to all you losers, by the way, on Twitter X who are sitting there unfollowing because of my critical comments of Klay. Like, bro, how are you okay with the veteran? You had your window. How are you okay with this stunt that's being pulled? Lester Q losing minutes, Podziemski, Kuminga trying to get a payday and you stepping on his feet. Lacob gave you 165 off a torn Achilles. Bro, what's going on? Like, I don't think he has kids. He doesn't have, not to get in his personal. Why is he acting like he's stretched for paper right now? Bro, sometimes you gotta, the brotherhood is more important. A reputation It takes a long time to build, and it can be lost within minutes. And you look greedy, selfish, childish, everything in the book. I'm not, listen, man, I'm on nobody's payroll. I'm going to call it how I see it. I'm going to say it exactly how it is. Like LeBron just said on the shop today, nobody wants a yes man in their circle. You can't grow like that. Some of y'all think you're going to pander your way onto these teams. It's not going to work for you that way. Speak your mind. Then be professional once they give you a check. Some of y'all just, man, it's crazy. But anyways, man, Clay is just, he's got it. I don't know what he's gonna do, man. This, you can't come back to the locker room if you fail in free agency. Even if you say, okay, fine, I'm gonna have my coming to Jesus moment, do a 3-year, 3-year, $20 million deal. The locker room, the youngsters aren't gonna look up to you the same way, because you're gonna come back with, dragging your bag after everything that's happened. And him citing mental health when he was talking to Draymond about where his next destination is going to be, like, bro, you've been the cancer. You should have bowed out gracefully and been gracious in the mentorship role. And instead you're sitting here, calling yourself, I don't even know. Like, listen, man, this is a recipe for disaster. If it would have been me, I would have beat them to the punch and been like, hey, I'm gonna take a little less just to keep us together. But if I'm Joe Lacob, I'm gonna like, hey, it's up to you. I'm gonna let you explain to the fan base. You want to take this pay cut and stay on the payroll, and I already said I give you two for 48. What's the problem? 24 million a year is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And you want 4 years, 100 mil? Can't do it. That's a no-go. Shout out to Chris Paul, man. Another guy played in an awkward role this year. He looked more uncomfortable here than he did in Houston, standing in the corner to James Harden. There's a lot of teams that could use his service. Denver's good for picking up players on a bargain. Boston needs a veteran ball handler. They haven't learned their lesson yet. You'll see. Orlando Magic could really use Chris Paul. Now, if he wants to have that impact, try to go for that, because he does deserve a quality send-off with dignity. I don't claim to always have all the answers. I said he should retire yesterday, but that was the heat of the moment, I guess. I didn't really think of it all. He deserves more dignity than that. No one's fought on more hills for Chris Paul and what he's meant to basketball and how outstanding he's been as a 3-level scorer who really understands when to pass and when to shoot. And then to have, especially with the gift, to be able to score and finish around the basket on all 3 levels like that. Honestly, I don't know too many players in the history of the game who balance that responsibility so well. Yeah, he was a little ball centric, but that guy, you can't name me 3 people besides maybe Stockton. I can't even name too many besides maybe Stockton and Peyton that could score at his ability on all 3 levels, and then still know when to give the ball up and see a play it happen before it happens and not be a liability on defense. He was crazy, man. So yeah, he definitely deserves to go out with a more legit shot. And if he really wants to leave that mark and that memory, the Orlando Magic is the media's darling. This is the only thing they're lacking. You'll see in this playoff run, they'll come to realize, I don't know what that ESPN thing was about them needing another shooter. Joe Ingles is just fine. It's CP3 that they need. They need a Shepherd from Kentucky, or the guy from NC State, O'Connell. They need a pass first distributor who can get you in your sets. So that would be another one, especially on a veteran minimum. He could be really disruptive this offseason in free agency. There's some big names who could get moved around. Karl Towns, Ice, Trae Young, Paul George. I think Paul George, I'm going to make another video on that. But yeah, he could definitely change the landscape real quick. So I'll try to do better next time, Utopians. All the best to everyone. Global out.